The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Here we go, Talkin' Buds Leaf Show, episode 251. Once again, as is becoming a habit so far this season, right as we're about to hit record and get into this, Ryan drops a comment that I want to delve into, and he says, I'm so happy they won that game last night.
You're damn right I am.
Please elaborate for us.
All right, so last night I did a rare thing where I had a lot of work to do, so I'm like, okay, it's 7 o'clock. What am I going to do? Am I going to watch the game live and then work after at 10 o'clock? I'm like, I'm probably not going to work if I start at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to record the game. I'm going to tell everyone not to text me. I'm not going to look at the score, which I always do. I always look at the score, but this time I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. So like 10:30 rolls around, I throw the game on. And I actually love watching it recorded because you can just fly through all the bullshit. And I find it easier to actually like understand what's going on. And like, I don't know, I just see the game better when it's faster. So I'm done the first period. I'm done the second period. I got a DM on Instagram from someone from work. So I go look at it. And then right when I go on Instagram, I see the Talkin' Buds post that you posted of the score. And I'm like, oh shit, 4-3. So then I go into the third period knowing what the score is. And honestly, I think it made the watching more enjoyable in the third period, knowing what's going to happen. Because the series of events that happened when I knew the outcome was like, holy shit.
I know. All the disallowed goals. Yes.
And it's like 4 minutes left. And I'm like, it's still 3-1. And there's two disallowed goals. Like, what the hell? And it just, I found it actually made my enjoyment of the game elevated because of just knowing what the score was and just how time was ticking down and it was still 3-1.
Just to like kind of go on a sidebar about this, I've been repeatedly called a bunch of names in my life because I'm someone who's big into spoilers. I want to know the spoilers.
Oh, same,
if I'm going
too.
to see a movie, I'm reading the spoilers before I go because I find if I know what's going to happen and I like what's going to happen, I get more excited to see it. And if it's going to suck, then I want to know going in that it's going to suck so I can mentally prepare myself because I don't like being caught off guard. I don't like surprises. So I'd imagine in your scenario as well, it probably gave you some more juice to watch the third.
Exactly.
Because the first two periods of that game were fucking brutal. And you see that and you're like, okay, there's something, this is worth watching. Listen, I just want to get this out of the way off the top. I officiated minor hockey growing up. You did the same thing. You umpired minor baseball. So as a result, you and I have been on that side. We're not huge, like criticize the officials guys. We never have been. If anything, my mentality has always been if bad refereeing is something you need to overcome. But holy Christ, was that a absolute sideshow on Wednesday night in Washington? A fucking sideshow, and the National Hockey League should be embarrassed.
Yeah, 3 disallowed goals. I thought even like the one penalty on, I think it was Pontus who got like a boarding penalty, and I'm looking at it being like I don't see it. I really don't
honestly
see
believe that sometimes these guys go out there just to try and prove a point. Like I honestly do. Like I honestly think that they go out there some nights and maybe they're just in a mood. Maybe there's something going on with the referee association and the National Hockey League, but they just go out there some nights and they decide they're going to take the game over and prove a point, and that's what that was. It was an absolute disgrace.
Now, getting into the episode, even though I didn't really explain why I was happy they won that game, is because
that's right.
I decided that going into this podcast, I was so not looking forward to them losing 2 games in a row without Matthews, and just all the whole narrative we've had the past 2 episodes is just out the window. And then we got to go back to just the same old shit. And it's just like, well, maybe. And then it just changes everything. And it's like, I'm so sick of flip flopping at this point. And I'm just, I'm so happy they got it done. So we can just have a similar tone of conversation than we've had the past 2 episodes. Because if they'd lost that game, like, gee, I don't know. I was not looking forward to coming on today and talking about it.
I'm 100% with you. And like, you and I poke fun at the media and people who cover this team and work in this city. And it's all in good fun. And to be completely transparent and like cards on the table, part of the reason why you and I only do 2 shows a week is because we admit like it's a lot to come on every day and talk about this team. So I'll always cut the media who are on every day talking about this team, writing about this team slack, because like you've got to put something out. But oh my God, man, after the Ottawa loss, just go down your Twitter feed. Well, they don't have Matthews. This is not the same team without Austin Matthews. Like, you know what? When you lose a player the caliber of Austin Matthews, it's going to affect your team. Yeah. And all the bitching and moaning about like they can't score. Like this Craig Berube system. Holy shit. I had to sign off yesterday because all we've done for 5 years under Sheldon Keefe is bitch and moan about this team's run and gun. It's not going to win in the playoffs. This is not how you play if you want to win a championship. This is not how the elite teams play. And the moment they have a game like that against Ottawa, all the Dubas disciples come out of the woodwork and they're all like, well, it's Craig Berube and Brad Treliving style. They can't score goals. How are you going to win if you can't score goals? And it's just like, shut up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's just
ridiculous.
And I was just thinking about, like, it's just so funny how every Leaf season's the exact same. Like, it's just there's these 5 game segments, and you basically have the same narratives just taking turns each 5 games. So it went from like Matthews is out of the lineup and look how well everybody's playing. And then they go out and get embarrassed by the Senators. Like, that was an awful game. I was checked out in the second period. And then all of a sudden it shifts to another narrative that always gets brought up during the season when everyone gets bored of the one before about the depth scoring. And it's just so exhausting. So like when they just go out and they pull out a game like that, it just makes me so happy to not just go on another, like, not just to shift the narrative again to another thing that we always talk about every fucking season.
I'm glad you brought up the depth scoring. Listen, I'm calling a meeting amongst Leaf Nation right now. I'm taking the gavel, I'm pounding it down. I'm saying enough with the depth scoring. Listen, if you want to sit and talk about, like, we can talk about other guys on this team. Max Domi is awful right now. I don't know what the hell is wrong with Max Domi. He's awful right now. Yeah, a guy like Pontus Holmberg has been terrible since the word go. Nick Robertson got scratched against the Washington Capitals and is proving that, like, it's just not going to work out here with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, we can have all that conversation. That's all well and good. This team is what they always have been. The big boys drive the bus. The big boys decided to take a night off on Tuesday night against the Ottawa Senators, and what happened? They got run out of the rink. On our last episode, talking about last week and winning all those games, what were we talking about? Mitch Marner is dominating. John Tavares looks really good. William Nylander is the engine of this team, okay? And you're watching what happened on Wednesday night in Washington. Everybody's asleep for 2 periods, and I present to you the box score for period number 3 and overtime. William Nylander from Matthew Knies. Mitch Marner from Morgan Riley and William Nylander. And in OT, John Tavares from Mitch Marner. That is what this team is. That is what makes them go. When those guys are engaged and locked in, they're very formidable, and everyone behind them falls in line. And when they're not, they don't, and they lose.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yeah.
So I'm over listening to this depth scoring argument. Like, you know, like, yes, in the playoffs in the past, would it have been nice to get a big goal from the third line? Absolutely. The big boys don't score in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That is what this team is. That is their identity. The big boys drive the bus. The big boys call the shots. You can like it. You can not like it. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you're kidding yourself if you don't think that's what this is.
Yeah, and I don't even want to get into that Ottawa game because that was just awful. I don't understand why.
Ask you, hold on. I do want to ask you, why can't they beat the Ottawa Senators?
I have no idea, man. It's actually embarrassing at this point. I really don't know. It's, again, my motto this season is let's find things that they buck the trend on being leafy. That's what I'm looking for, and they couldn't do it the other night. They were awful from the minute the puck dropped. It was terrible. I don't know why they suck against that team. It's just they weren't even in the game. There wasn't a second in that hockey game where I felt like they were in it. That was just awful. I really have nothing to say about that hockey game other than they need to figure out how to play better against that team. Because that's just 2 points that you just can't afford to lose if you want to win the division, even though I don't think they're going to win the division. But again, they come out against Washington. I thought in the first period they were awful. I thought that first goal, Domi was just I don't know what the hell he was doing, being soft on the guy in front of the net.
Inexcusably soft. Soft.
Connor Timmins is all of a sudden Craig Berube's favorite player, but I thought he was terrible on the second goal. Everyone was brutal in the first period. Actually, I thought maybe to start the game, it was 50-50, but then after 5 minutes, the Caps absolutely dominated. And then in the second period, I thought they were awful again until they got that power play midway through the period. And then I thought they started to gain a little bit of momentum. And then after the second period, even though I knew what the score was going to be, I'm in my head, if I was watching this game live, maybe this just isn't their night. But I can see at the end of the second, they started to get their legs a little bit. And then the third period, they come out and they look like a completely different hockey team.
Yeah.
And you're right. And depth scoring, the depth scoring thing is tough because people aren't wrong when they say that. It's not
Agreed.
They're wrong. It's
agreed. I totally agree.
Bobby McMann hasn't scored. That was his first goal in I don't even know how many games. Forever. It's been a long time. Max Domi hasn't had a point and I don't even know how long. I want to say 6+ games. He missed a clear cut breakaway. And the problem with Max Domi too, it's this guy is not a center. He's not a center.
No.
You're not getting your best from him playing the center ice position. You are not. And then that third line last night, Max Pacioretty leaving the lineup, it's you're looking at that third line and you're
so
is that the worst third line of the NHL?
So again,
that is awful.
I'm glad that you said, so I went on my rant and I still believe that. I think when it comes to depth scoring, the big boys drive the bus, and I think all of the stuff will fall in place behind that. So I think if the big boys are going, it'll just sort of invigorate everybody, and you'll get more contributions up and down the lineup. But there's nuance to everything, and you're right, man. And that's what I agree with your point about. Nobody's wrong, and no one is wrong in pointing out that Alex Steeves, David Kampf, and Pontus Holmberg
is maybe the worst line assembled in the NHL.
Yes.
In terms of providing offense.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really bad. And even the fourth line, Steven Lorentz has 3 goals on the year, which I think is a pretty good start for a fourth liner. But I always kind of am okay with Ryan Reeves being in the lineup, but the guy hasn't, he's not, what is he here to do? He's here to fight, and he hasn't even sniffed dropping the gloves. So I'm just watching him skate around. I'm just
what are you doing?
Yeah, does this guy need to play every game if he's not really doing what he's supposed to be doing? And I don't think you need to go fight just for fighting's sake. I think there is a time and place. I think when they were down against the Sens, he could have found somebody to try to go with, to get that game turned around. I don't want him to fight for no reason and maybe shift the tide into the other team's favor by just having an untimely fight. But you're watching him just skate around, try to finish checks, and it's just I don't really know what this guy's doing on the fourth line.
I think that's a fair point. It's why are you here?
But here's the problem.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, but here's the problem. It's okay, all those things, you're not wrong. Obviously, every team needs more depth scoring to the NHL to a degree. But the problem with this team is all these big boys who are on the score sheet every night. I'll give them that. But to me, like, some of them have gotten the big money. Some of them are looking for even more money. And it's like, if you're going to be paid like this in the NHL, I can't give you a pass on any night for not doing your job. Like, you're supposed to be on the score sheet every night. Like, every time I turn around a Colorado Avalanche game, Nathan McKinnon is flying. Like, he's out there every single shift, dangerous, creating chances. Like, I know the Avs don't have a great record, but I'm watching him play every single shift. He's incredible. And it's just like, I refuse to give like Mitch Marner and Nylander and all those guys a pass for like having even a bad 2 periods. It's like, no, you're supposed to be the best players in the NHL. Like, you're paid like it. So I'm not going to start looking at Steven Lorentz and Pontus Holmberg.
Thank you.
In terms of
I agree.
In terms of not succeeding when you guys want to be paid like your big dog. So like the expectation is you provide at least a point a night. Like,
agreed. And that's what I mean.
Even 2 points a night, especially if you want to be a 100-point guy. Like Nylander and Marner having got to 100 points. How do you get to 100 points? Having multiple point games throughout the regular season. So I'm not giving those guys a pass and starting to blame Pontus Holmberg.
No, I 100% agree. And like I said, there's nuance to every argument. Yes, you could look at the bottom six and go, this isn't great. I don't love the look of this, but the team is constructed this way. Like, this is, oh my God, how many times have we and every other podcast talked about this? And what you literally just hit on it. When you're taking up as much of a team's salary cap as these guys are taking up, that's kind of how this team is supposed to go. And it's just, it's very clear. The point I'm trying to make is these guys are the pulse. They're the engine. You hit on this a few weeks ago. You said William Nylander is the engine. You can tell in the first shift what version of William Nylander you're getting that night. And it permeates through the rest of the team. Like I said earlier, all we did last week, look at how great Mitch Marner is. Look how well this team is playing because of how well Mitch Marner is playing. Everyone falls in line behind that. And when they don't play that way, then everything looks like a mess. And we start talking about like, well, why is Pontus Holmberg not contributing? It's like, it's not about fucking Pontus Holmberg. Yeah. It's not. Like, I'm not saying the guy doesn't stink. He absolutely stinks. Yeah. But like, it's not about Pontus Holmberg. This team is not going to live and die with fucking Pontus Holmberg. It's going to live and die with 16, 88, 34, and 91.
Yeah. And it's a gray area conversation. It's like not really black and white. It's like you can't like in the same breath. It's like I can't expect a guy to show up every single 82. Like they're going to have some stinkers, but at the same time, you want to be paid like a big dog. You got to play like a big dog every single night. And then also to the point you just had, it's like, yeah, it's on the big guys, but every team in this league needs a little bit of depth scoring to succeed. So it's just it's a tough conversation. You can go both ways. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, but it's just like it's just a narrative cycle in the city in terms of the media where it's like, okay, we're bored of taking shots at the top guy. So this week we're going to look at Pontus Holmberg and David Kampf, and that's going to be our narrative.
Today's episode of the Talking Buds Leaf Show is brought to you by Game Time.
Rob, the girlfriend and I just got a place right downtown. And since we've been down here, you know I've been to a couple Jays games. You know I've been to some concerts. And you know for a fact I'll be in the building for a couple Leaf games this season. And anytime I need to grab tickets to an event, I use Game Time.
I recently used Game Time to grab some tickets for you and me to go see Creed at Scotiabank Arena in November. I'm getting warmed up. I'm getting excited. Home now.
All right. If you keep going, they won't want to do business with us anymore.
All right. I digress. I'll save my Scott Stapp impression for another time.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier.
Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets.
Game Time Picks curates and makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater.
They've got my favorite feature, which is called Seat Views, where you can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy.
Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time. Now, I will say the positive. Now, we've kind of criticized those big guys in the Ottawa game and the start of the Washington game, but I will say in that third period against Washington, like Oliver Ekman-Larsson looked like a fucking goat. Like, holy shit, did he have a third period. Like, the goal that got disallowed that Lorentz scored, like, that was all him. He was involved in that, he was involved in all the goals in the third period. Matthew Knies was involved in all the goals. He looked fantastic. I thought Morgan Riley was really good. Morgan Riley all of a sudden is firing the puck on net with regularity, and it's making a huge difference. And the biggest positive of them all, I think John Tavares is playing some of the best hockey.
He's
played in a long time.
It's wild. Like I said, I've said this a bunch of times. Ryan and I don't do a ton of pre-show prep. We kind of chat a little bit. We don't really know what we're going to talk about. Dude, we are on the same wave with that one. I was literally just going to say, we have a long-standing history and tradition on this podcast that, like, if we chirp someone or we criticize a guy, we are more than happy to come on here later and sit down with a bowl of crow and eat it. John Tavares has been fantastic, especially since Austin Matthews has been out. And I really do think, Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm going to come back at you on this one here. You talk a lot about how much does a letter on a sweater matter. I think it really does matter. And I think having that pressure off him and just being able to go play has made a world of difference to him this year. He's just out there playing hockey, and he looks really good.
Yeah, I'll never buy that. I'm sorry. I'll never buy into that narrative ever. I just think he just looks, I don't know. He just looks better. Like I don't know if he's skating better. I don't know if he's making better decisions. I don't know if he's taking better routes to compensate for his speed. I just think, especially the 5-on-5 production, it's like really shocking. Because I remember at some point last year, like he didn't score like a 5-on-5 goal for a long time, and he looked a little lost out there. But yeah, he looks reinvigorated. And we had a conversation a couple weeks ago where it's like, we wouldn't pay this guy a thing. And obviously he is getting older. Like he could have a good year this year and the next year come back and be just as slow as ever. But you got to give the guy credit. I think he's been really, really, really good for them. And he's off to a great start. Already 9 goals, 16 points. He's a plus. Like he's doing it all for them right now. He looks really good.
He stepped up in a big way. And like I said, we will absolutely come on here and give a guy praise after we ripped him. And John Tavares absolutely deserves that. And when he had that breakaway in OT, you just felt good about it. It's not like when Max Domi gets a breakaway and you're like, what the hell is going to happen here? It's like, John Tavares is like, this is going in the net because this guy is so locked in right now. There's a couple of guys.
Hold on a second. One thing before you move on. Joseph Wall also made a huge save on a point-blank chance from Alexander Ovechkin.
He did.
Then Marner threw it up the ice. So I got to give Joey Wall some credit for making a big save when it mattered in overtime.
I want to talk about 2 guys specifically. We've hit on one of them sort of sporadically throughout the episode. One of them is a negative, not a negative. One of them is a struggling story. The other one is a positive, excelling story. I want to start with just diving a little deeper into Max Domi. Like he is really, really struggling. He's making really bad decisions with the puck. He was soft on the back check last night that led to that first goal. He's once again, just like last year, we're well into the season here and he's not scoring.
Yeah.
So what if you're going to boil down what is going on with Max Domi, what do you think it is? Personally, for me, just a little tidbit to get you going here. I just think you hit on it earlier. This guy's not a centerman.
No, he's not. I think that's what I'm going to blame it on. I really think that he's just not at his best when he's not playing the wing. I really don't. This team, it's so evident that this team is missing a center iceman in that third spot.
Yes.
Like you don't need like an elite level player to be your third line center, but they need to find somebody who's better than what they have and can help and be somewhat, it goes back to depth scoring, but be somewhat more of like an offensive offensive contributor, so that line isn't just a sinkhole, because he is a very useful player when he gets going, and because he does show some skill, and we've seen it throughout his tenure here. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. They're like, even on that other goal where there's like 4 guys skating towards Ovi, and there's a guy out in front of the net. They need to sort out their coverage when they come out on the back check too, on like an odd man rush, because they're always just skating towards the guy with the puck and just leaving somebody wide open. But I just don't think he's in the best position to succeed. But their center depth is so bad; it's really not good. So I mean, that's the only thing I can really look at. It's like, I just don't think he's being put in the best spot to succeed.
I also don't think that he and Marner are a fit together, because they're really similar in who they are, and that like they're creators. They want to pass. They want to set other guys up. And I just don't think the two of them mesh well together. But in fairness, they are in a situation right now with injuries where they're kind of doing a patchwork thing here, and they have to, they got to do what they got to do.
All of a sudden, Marner was with Tavares last night, and Domi was with Nylander, and
and I think
Knies
that's better.
Knies was with Nylander, so it was a bit of a shakeup last night.
Yeah, I think that's better. That's a lot better. One more thing on the center depth. I think, we talked about John Tavares. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, that makes Brad Treliving's search for another centerman a bit easier, because if he plays like this, then he's your second line centerman. So you're looking for a two-way third line center that is responsible defensively and can chip in offensively. But when John Tavares struggles, you're kind of like, now we need a second line center who's more offensive geared, which is harder to find.
Yeah,
so
I think you're just in a pickle where like John Tavares is your second line center, and you're going to kind of live and die with what he can contribute, because you're just not. I just don't think you're going to find a guy like the second scenario you laid out. I just don't think that guy's available.
No,
I don't think they have the cap space. They don't have the pieces to make a significant trade. They need to find somebody to play third line center, so they can get Domi off center and just find somebody who's better than what they have right now, because like watching Pontus Holmberg and David Cam play third line center is
painful.
Yeah,
it's painful.
It's not a recipe for long-term success.
Dude,
it's
you
really
hit on
not.
it. You hit on it earlier when they tweeted out the lineup for last night. My eyes bugged out of my head when I saw that third line. I was like, "Oh my god, that's as ugly as it gets. That's as ugly as it gets for a third line.
It really is.
There's nothing appealing about that third line. Last guy I want to hit on, and we've talked about him a lot, and Leafs Nation has talked about him a lot, is Matthew Knies. Like this dude is. I'm off the deep end. This guy's a core piece. Pay him right now. Like he's a core piece, man. Like the guy makes a difference every single time he's out there. No matter who Berube puts him with, he makes a difference. This is a guy that they've never had in this era. A true power forward horse of a winger that is excelling. And I actually think that Craig Berube has been a really good thing for him, because I think Berube appreciates. Like, you see the way Berube coaches and you see what he values. And I'm not saying Sheldon Keefe didn't value Matthew Knies. What I am saying is Sheldon Keefe was a way more skill first sort of mindset. Whereas I think Berube really knows what he has in Matthew Knies, and he knows like this is a power forward horse winger. Like these guys don't grow on trees. And I think this coaching staff has done a lot to pump the tires of Matthew Knies, which you see almost on a shift-to-shift basis. The guy literally gets better every single night. And I don't want to do the Toronto thing where we start worrying about how he's getting more and more expensive. Quite frankly, I don't really care. I've seen enough. I think this guy is a pillar of this team's future. I've said it 100 times, and I think and I'm sure Tree Living is working to sign him. And I'm sure the Knies camp is like, no, we're going to hold off. We're having an unreal season right now. Why would we sign right now when we could potentially get more in the offseason? But the point I'm trying to make is this guy's a horse, and he's become an extremely, extremely valuable piece of this team.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's kind of put to bed the he hasn't really shown any sort of goal
That
scoring
was so
prowess throughout his
stupid.
career,
That
which
was
is everybody's.
so.
Someone threw that take out at the start of the season, and then everyone heard it and decided that was going to be their take too. And even I mentioned it at the preseason. I'm a little guilty of that, but I think that's been put to bed pretty quick here because last night
What makes you roll your eyes more? The Matthew Knies hasn't scored a lot in junior, or Anthony Stolarz has only played 20 some odd games in the National Hockey League? Which one just makes you like, oh my God? They're both brutal.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I think maybe the Stolarz one makes me more angry, but but Matthew Knies, like last night, they were out. He was on the ice the entire last 5 minutes of that game.
This is what I mean.
He was a part of the goal. Like he was a part of everything last night. He was making big plays. He was involved. Like, yeah, he's just. And they just needed him to hit so bad. And I think the same pressure is going to be applied towards Fraser Minton and Easton Cowan in the future, where it's just, this team has done just a shitty job of drafting guys and developing guys, which is why we're talking about the depth scoring being so brutal. And it would help if Nick Robertson was any good, but he's not. And so it's like, it's just found like finally a guy you went out and drafted in the second round who's hit. And he's a big dude, and you're right. He's just growing with confidence every single game, and he's out there in pivotal situations. And I do think that Craig Berube appreciates his style of game more, and it probably fits him better as a player that he's his coach and not Sheldon Keefe.
Last thing, it just popped in my head. Speaking of Craig Berube and what he values, what do you think of big Yanni Hakanpää?
Classic big defenseman that I don't want to see handling the puck too often.
But I just think that guy, here's my thing. If you're Simone Benoit, you need to be pretty worried, because I just think barring that guy looking absolutely hopeless, or having some sort of injury setback, he's not coming out. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you look at that guy, like everything that I've heard from listening to other pods and whatever is the Dallas Stars love this guy. They just didn't think he was going to be able to stay healthy. And that's why they moved on from him. And I just think, like, you see what Berube values. I think Yanni Hakanpää is here to stay. I think they love his size. I thought he made a few plays last night where he just angled guys off, and he's so big that there's nothing you can really do about it. And I agree. Is he a guy you want to see rushing up the ice, holding the puck? No, not necessarily. But like I said, barring this guy looking completely hopeless or an injury setback, I think this guy's in the lineup every night.
Yeah, well, it's one game, so I'm not like, honestly, I didn't really notice him that much. Like,
which is a good thing. Yeah, which is a good thing.
We always say for defensemen who aren't point producers, if you're not noticing them, it's a good thing. Maybe other people notice more than I did, just for my viewing experience. I didn't really notice him too much out there. So let's just see how he progresses. But I think the most random story of the season is just how much Craig Berube and the coaching staff love Connor Timmins. Like, that's just that is like the most random story of the season, I feel like.
And the narrative to start the season is the fact that this team is straight up Jekyll and Hyde. Like, it's actually fucked. Like, there's no how many games? I actually did this at work with a guy yesterday where we went through the games they've played and said, what games have they lost where you were like, oh, they played well in that game? The first game of the season against Montreal.
Yeah.
The Saturday night loss to the Rangers. And that's it. Like they stunk up the joint against the Blue Jackets. They stunk it up twice against the St. Louis Blues. The 4-3 loss to the Bruins, they weren't very good. They stunk in that game.
Yeah.
Like, outside, Minnesota, I would say the Minnesota Sunday night game.
Stolarz.
Yes.
That was an Anthony Stolarz show.
There's literally been 2 games this year where you've been like, they were fine, just didn't go their way. Like, every other game, it's like, wow, they beat the Winnipeg Jets or the Boston Bruins or the Tampa Bay Lightning and looked like legit cup contenders. Or, wow, they were fucking terrible. Twice against the St. Louis Blues, once against the Ottawa Senators. Brutal.
Yeah, they've beaten some good teams. Like, they dominated the Kings. They dominated the Lightning. They beat the Bruins. They beat the Jets. Like, they've beaten some good teams. But yeah, you're right. It is pretty. It just seems like the I guess it's Jekyll and Hyde, but it just seems like it's just crazy how it's just like they're either firing on all cylinders or they're just like getting completely outworked. Dude,
that's the story of the season. And dude, it's happened in a game. Like you think of the game in St. Louis, the Saturday night game, they dominated that first period and then packed it in. And then you look at Wednesday night in Washington, they were brutal for 2 periods and then came out in the third and we're like, okay, like and again, to bring this episode full circle, when the big boys decide they're engaged and want to play, the hockey team wins.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It really is.
All right, buddy. I mean, Saturday night, the Edmonton Oilers, always a must-watch game. We'll be back on Sunday morning to talk about that game. Apparently, Austin Matthews might play. I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath. Like, they're being super secretive about this. He's on the ice. He's not on the ice. They're not, like, this is what they do. You don't get any details about injuries. That's fine. But I'd imagine, I hope he plays because Matthews versus McDavid is always super marquee. People love that. So, yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, let's get him back in the lineup here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we'll be back on Sunday morning. So if you'd like to join us for that, hit that like and subscribe button below. Also, if you're listening to the audio version, like, subscribe, review, all that stuff. Also, give us a follow on our socials. You can find the links to those in the description as well.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. We will see you guys on Sunday morning.